My name is Misty, and I'm in the 12th grade. After school today, I rushed home to finish off all my homework as I had quite a bit. When I got home, I sat down at my computer to finish a sex ed assignment that was due the next day. It was driving me crazy that I couldn't seem to get it done. It was for my sex education class, and the topic was female orgasm versus the male orgasm. Since I really had no idea what a male orgasm was like, it was really hard for me to write about. I mean, I'm 17 and I've never had sex with a man, so how am I supposed to know what it's like? And even the female orgasm, I've only had a few times, so that's still new to me too. What if what I had wasn't really an orgasm? I logged into my email account and put in my teacher's email. Most students don't have their high school teacher's email address, but he had given it to us in case we ever needed help. I never figured that I'd use it, but I knew that in order to pass this class, I had to get a good grade on this paper. I was going to have to ask for help. Mr. Path, I've been trying so hard to write this paper on the difference between male orgasms and female orgasms. I really don't even have a clue where to begin. I know little to nothing about orgasms in general, and the book is very vague. I was kind of wondering you could help me out or give me an extension on it. Thank you very much, Misty. I pressed the send button with my mouse and then went back to trying to write my paper, still having no ideas. I got up from the computer and walked over to my bed, flopping down onto my stomach. I grabbed my health book from the side of the bed and began to read the chapter once more. None of it was really helping me truly understand this orgasm thing. Sure, it explained what an orgasm was and how they happened, but that really wasn't saying a lot. After about 15 minutes after I started reading the book, my computer made a bell sound that meant I had an email waiting. I didn't get up right away to check it, being as 90% of the time I got mail it was spam, but I knew, however, that there was a slight possibility that it could be Mr. Path, so I got up and checked. To my surprise, he had written me back. Misty, I'm sorry that you're having so much trouble with this paper. I know that this paper is important for you to pass my class, so I am wanting to help you out a little bit. If you would like to come by my house sometime this evening around 8 or 9, I would be more than happy to go over it with you. Just stop on by. My address is 1244 Smith Avenue. Hope to see you there. If I don't see you, good luck on your paper. I wish there was more I could do with an extension, but this is the end of the year. I need to get grades in as soon as I can. Hope to see you this evening, Mr. Path. At first I thought it was a joke. Why would he ask me to come to his house? We could have just found a way to do this via email, though that seemed like it would have taken a long time. He had probably already figured that part out. I wasn't sure about going to his house, but I needed to get a decent grade on this paper, and he was my only option. Looking at the clock, I realized that it was already 7. I shut off my computer and ran to the bathroom. I really needed to take a shower. Once my shower was over, I finished getting ready. I threw on a pair of shorts, since it was getting hotter and hotter out at night, and a tank top, putting a little sweater on over it. I threw my hair into a ponytail, packed my backpack, and snuck out of my window. I had told my parents that I was going to bed, and I knew that they wouldn't be checking on me anyway. They really didn't pay much attention to me at all, but they would have noticed me going out the front door and questioned where I was going. The walk to his house was not a long one. I lived right around the corner from Smith Avenue, and it was only a couple of blocks down once I was on it. He lived in a decent-looking house, one that looked like it would have been a little much for a teacher's salary. His wife probably had a really good job of some sort. Knocking on the door, I clinched my bag to me, and waiting nervously. I had never been to a teacher's house before. It almost felt like being sent to the principal's office. It was like that feeling that you had done something wrong. Now was time for my punishment or something along those lines. Hey, Misty, Mr. Papp said with a smile as he opened the front door. I was a little taken back for a second. At school, he was generally in nice dress-type clothes and overly done. Now he was in a pair of basketball shorts and a white t-shirt. He went from looking like my teacher to looking like this hot, older man. He almost looked like a short-haired version of Johnny Depp. Hi, Mr. Pav, I said, a little overexcitedly. I couldn't help but want him. I mean, he looked so amazing. It was almost unfair. Oh, he said, ushering me into his house. Please, Misty, call me baby. I am only Mr. Pav when I am in school, and from what I can see, this is not school. Okay, babe, I laughed as I entered his house. It was even bigger on the inside. It was probably the nicest house I had ever been in. Go ahead and get comfortable, he said, pointing to the couch in the living room. Would you like something to drink, Misty? Sure, I answered, moving over to the couch and sitting down. I placed my book bag down by my feet and crossed my ankles, then placed my fingers together and placed them on my lap. A glass of water would be good. He didn't even answer me before disappearing. I felt a little uncomfortable sitting alone in his living room. It was even weirder with the big picture of him and his wife hanging on the wall, almost like they were sort of royalty. She was beautiful, though, like royalty. She had long blonde hair that was slightly curly and big blue eyes. She was the trophy wife you hear about all the time. So, what kind of problems are you having with your paper? He asked as he walked back into the living room and took a seat next to me. He handed me a beer and gave me a wink. I didn't question it, and I took a small sip. I just don't know what to write. I began taking another sip of the beer. I read the chapter over and over again. I get how the orgasms happen and whatnot, but I don't fully understand them. I feel like I'm looking way too much into this, but for someone that has never really even had an orgasm, it's hard to write a paper about them, and now I'm rumbling on and I've made a complete fool of myself and should probably go now. I could not believe that I just told him that I never had an orgasm. That is not the kind of thing you tell your history teacher. I stood up and started reaching for my bag, and when he pulled me back to the couch. You don't need to go anywhere, he said. That is why I invited you over here. You needed help with your paper and understanding how to write it, and I want to help you understand. Okay, I said, feeling more nervous and a little embarrassed. Not to get off the subject or anything, but what is your wife? She's in Africa, he said, looking at her picture and then back down at me. She's a doctor and spends a lot of time across the world helping people who can't help themselves. I don't really get to see her very much, but I knew that when I married her. Oh, okay, I responded. It didn't sound like the best kind of marriage in the world, but all people are different, and all people like different things. I drank a little more of the beer and looked off into space. I really wasn't sure what I was supposed to do from here. So, you want to understand what an orgasm is? He asked me as he leaned back on the couch and began to drink his beer. Yeah, I answered in response to his question. I really need to be able to pass this class in order to graduate. Well, he said, setting his beer down on the coffee table in front of us, if you'd like, I'd love to be able to help you understand orgasms a little better in order for you to write this paper. I'd really appreciate that, I said with a smile, though there was a strange feeling in the pit of my stomach that told me something was going to happen that I wasn't fully prepared for. I leaned back on the couch and looked over at Mr. Pav. He was looking me over head to toe. It didn't take him long to touch me. He placed his hand on my knee and slowly began to move it up my thigh. I wanted to tell him to stop, but my heart was beating in my throat and I couldn't get a single word out. Plus, there was a side of me that didn't want him to stop. If you want me to stop, he whispered in my ear, you just have to let me know. I nodded to him, but I didn't say a word. He leaned forward and began to kiss my neck. My whole body got the chills from when his lips touched the curve between my neck and my shoulder. A small moan escaped my lips, which caused him to softly bite down, which sent my whole body over the edge. Do you want me to stop? He asked me, and he began to pull my shirt over my head. I lifted my arms to help him. I shook my head no as he tossed my shirt aside and looked down at my breasts. They were not the best in the world, 36B, but they were a perfect handful. At least, that's what I like to call them. They were hiding under that of a black bra. No. I let out a moan as he began to kiss my chest right above my breasts. I could feel my nipples getting hard. He could see them poking through my bra, so he reached behind me and undid the clasp, holding it against my skin. I felt it fell down on my lap, exposing my hard nipples to him. Good, he smiled as he moved down and took one of my nipples into his mouth, because I don't want to. He began to suck on them, lightly, flicking his tongue over them. He moved from my breasts down to my stomach. I took a deep breath when he hit my belly button and began to unbutton my jeans. I lifted my hips to help him out. It wasn't long before there were a pile of my shirt and my bra. Now I was in front of him, wearing nothing but a black pair of boy shorts. Sexy, he laughed, as he began to pull them off of me, and added them to the pile. Just not really needed at the moment. I smiled down at him, but I still didn't have the ability to speak. The only thing leaving my mouth were the occasional moans that left my mouth when his lips were against me. Once I was fully naked, he worked with me to lay me down on the couch just slightly. My legs were still hanging off the couch, but the rest of me was laying down. He kissed down my stomach and slid his hand between my legs. I moaned loudly as his fingers slid over the top of my clit. It was the most amazing feeling in the world. It made my entire body shake. "You want me to stop yet?" he asked, not giving me a chance to answer. He moved his head down between my legs and replaced his finger with his tongue. I let out a yelp as his tongue rolled over my clit, sending me over the edge. I knew in that moment that I had never had an orgasm before. I wasn't having one now, and this was better than anything I had ever felt before. He licked my clit faster and then sucked it into his mouth. The feeling made my entire body shake and my legs clamped around his head. This only made him suck harder. It was almost too much for me to handle. It was not until he slid his finger in me that I knew I was getting ready to have my first orgasm. "Oh my God," I screamed as he fucked his finger in and out of me, harder and harder with each thrust. "Don't stop, Mr. Pep. I'm gonna come." It was right in that instant that my first orgasm took over my body. I was shaking violently, and he was holding me down with his arm. He didn't want to stop. He just kept licking my clit, and I felt my orgasm was never going to end. Finally, after my body had calmed down slightly, he took his lips off of my clit. He kissed his way up my stomach to my neck, and then finally kissed me. His lips were soaking wet, and I licked all of the juice off of them. My mouth watered as I savored the flavor, so he said with a smile on his face, "Think you can figure this paper out?" I smiled at him, and then pulled him down to me and kissed him again. We made out for what seemed like forever. The feeling of him pressed against my naked body was amazing. "Well, if you could give me 1 or 2 more days," I said with a wink, "I would love to do more research on the matter." Reaching down, I rubbed his cock with his pants. It was rock hard. He smiled at me with a look that said he understood what I was asking. "I think I can give you a few more days."